Alright, well we have a dilemma here because I don't have a nut driver or a Allen wrench here long enough to stick in there to screw that screw in. So we're going to go ahead and finish this step, and I will have to go shopping and get another driver for that. But I think that we can finish this without. So let's go ahead and put our two shims over the gear, just like we did in the previous one. Then we're going to put a fast steady bearing over. And then I forgot my spacer. Plastic spacer. Let's see if we can find it here. There it is. Make sure it looks good, not cracked anything, all good. Slide that spacer on, and we're going to put our little dealy bopper in there and make sure the hole lines up. Grab our pin. See if we got everything lined up here. This is just like we did the other one. Look at that, goes right in. Going to put the other bearing over it to capture everything, and put our C-clip on. I'm actually cutting the manual. Let's get some help here. Woo! Landed on my leg. Got it most of the way on. Push it the rest of the way on here. There's still a little gap in there. There we go. Completely seated in. We're all good there. Now we're going to insert this just like we did into the front diff housing, except for we're going to fit it in through this hole here. And again, I don't have that shaft on there. We'll do that later. And make sure everything lines up, and we're going to have to seat those bearings down inside. And it's not wanting to seat. Let's double check that E-clip and make sure that E-clip is all the way on. It is. I have a feeling I'm just not dropping it in straight. There we go. Drop it in straight and push on it. Still doesn't want to go in. Maybe I'm at a little bit of an angle there. There we go. Once you get it at the right angle, it wants to go in. There we go. You have to also make sure that when you're pushing it through, that this does not hang up on the lip. That's what was giving me my resistance and why it wasn't going in. Okay, so we have that all the way in. I'm going to hold this up to the camera, and you're going to see inside there's 3 screw holes. And what we're going to do is use 3 of these small screws that are in here. And they're a button head. Let me just double check the number here. AXA 61, 61s, yes. These are these really tiny little, sorry about my head there, these are the really little tiny button head screws. And those are going to screw into the hole, and the screw head itself is going to capture that bearing to keep it seated in. When you screw these in, don't strip them out. You want to go in just till it touches. And that's it. You can see how that screw is in the bottom one here is actually retaining the edge of that bearing. Let me go ahead and put another one in. Might be a little better camera angle for you to see exactly how that's capturing that bearing. You only want to put them in until they touch because they're short and they will strip out. See a little better camera angle there. Kind of low on light. There we go. You can see how they capture that. It's interesting the way they do that. I've seen that done a couple of times on, I forget what RC car that was, but I've seen that done once before to capture a bearing. Alright, so once this is done, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step. I do want to correct an error, which I just realized I made. Okay, all three screws are in. We're going to make sure everything turns easily and properly and doesn't bind. And we're going to come back and revisit and put the drive shaft on with the screw when I get the proper size Allen wrench. Okay, the mistake I made was we're going to go back to the front diff, and we forgot to grease the front diff. I was just looking at my grease and saying, wow, we didn't grease that front diff. So what we're going to do is just going to lay some grease on the gear, and I just put a little dab on there, rotate it around about 5 or 6 teeth, put a little dab on. Just do that a few times. You don't have to over grease them. There we go. Where'd my grease cap go? Here we are. And then we're just going to spin it around to distribute the grease. That's all. So don't forget to grease the diff. Alright, so we have this done, and we're going to get out our pieces and partses and move on to step number 7. Step number 7 is going to be pretty darn easy here. Let's figure out where we're going to start. Okay, let's take our diff and put some grease on it. We won't forget to grease this one. And just doesn't take that much. I just put a little bit on a few of the teeth as we go around. You don't have to really overload it. Don't need that much, but you need enough. Let's look here at the rear diff and the axle. Okay, got a nub here, as you can see, sticking up, and that is the top for what we're going to call the top at this moment. Going to look at the picture here. We're going to put the diff in with the gears facing in this direction. It's going to drop down in there. Is it? Okay, I'm at a loss. Yes. Okay, we're going to have to back up. I did not pay attention. And this is actually the rear diff, because the drive cups are longer, or I'm sorry, the front diff. The drive cups are longer on the front diff than they are on the rear. Ha ha ha. Okay, let's get into our time machine and go forward in time, backward in time, whatever. Okay, we are now building the front diff. When you're building the front diff, and later on in the directions when you're building the rear diff, you're going to see that there is a difference in the drive cup length. You're going to want to make sure that the longer drive cups go into the front diff and the shorter drive cup go into the rear axle. This is the drive cup here. I'm trying not to get my fingers all greasy. These are the drive cups, and the longer ones you're going to use when you build the front diff, and the shorter ones later on in the direction when you build the rear diff. Ha! Okay, so back through the time machine to where we were.